Good evening, everybody. So, I was originally going to make this video after the Halo TV show ended its first season, but you know what? We're nearly halfway through it, and nothing good has come out of it, so screw it, I'm doing it now. So, I'm not going to mince words here. The show is awful, it is. It's a really kind of bad shame, because like, there are some good parts of it that I do like out of it, like, I do like the scenes where they're actually fighting the Covenant, well, all of the first episode, and it's only for about 5 minutes where they're actually fighting Covenant. Yeah, like, they only fight the Covenant during the first 5 or 10 minutes before the opening intro even pops up, and then, like, for the rest of the episode, like, it's nothing. And then like, they haven't fought the Covenant at all for every episode after that, up until now. And I do like that, I actually do like that Master Chief John is, like, getting those flashbacks to his childhood. Like, this latest episode was really heavy on his flashbacks and visions, and I actually do like that, like, he's getting that, and he's kind of, like, breaking away from Dr. Halsey, which then they actually are keeping true that, like, she's like a cold manipulator, so that is, kind of, cool, but really, that's about it. The Spartan's armor is okay, I guess. I wouldn't really mind Master Chief taking off his helmet if he didn't do it so often. Like the first episode, he takes it off during the last 5 minutes, and, like, I honestly thought that was okay. But then he spends the entire second episode, third episode, and at least half of the fourth episode just almost completely out of his suit, and it's like the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie where he only has his helmet on and he only is in uniform during the first 5 minutes and last 5 minutes, and everything else he's basically like in these rags, basically. Or like in the latest Snake Eyes movie that came out last year, where he literally doesn't have his face covered, isn't wearing, like, his suit, and he talks throughout the entire film, and even when he gets the mask at the very end of the movie, he's still speaking. So there's just a bunch of crap that's muddled into this show that just overshadows the parts that I actually do like. Because, like I said, when they actually are fighting the Covenant, they do look cool. And the visions and flashbacks that John has, they are interesting. Like, you actually do sympathize with him. And I do like that they actually did keep in the flashback from the Fall of Reach novel where he and Dr. Halsey had that game where she flips the coin and he correctly guesses the side of the coin every single game. So I do like that they kept that in, and I do get what the writers were talking about when they said, like, well, we didn't play the video games, we focused on the novels instead of the video games, so that we'd get more freedom. And I do sort of get that to an extent, but it's not like you have to recreate the entire game cutscene for cutscene, right? Like, ask any film studio that has made a movie based on a comic book. Like, whether it's Disney, Marvel, DC, and say with a straight face that they have recreated the entire film, like, just panel for panel. Like, I think the closest and most faithful, like, panel-to-panel adaptation, was probably Watchmen. And even then, they didn't do everything 100% like the graphic novel did. Right? Like, in the original comic, like, there was a space alien or whatever created by Ozymandias that attacked New York or something like that. And they didn't do that in the film. In the film, Zack Snyder had Ozymandias weaponize like Dr. Manhattan's power to kill a bunch of people. So even then, like, they didn't do everything panel for panel. Like, or look at Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, the whole premise and theme about that, of people knowing Peter Parker's identity, and him having to basically give up his life, that was originally taken from the Spider-Man One Day More, or One More Day comic, where he actually made a deal with Mephisto, whereas in that one, in exchange for Mephisto wiping the entire world's memory of Peter Parker's identity, he actually took away his and Mary Jane Watson's marriage, which obviously they couldn't do in No Way Home because they were still teenagers, but my point still stands. Like, even if the writers played the video games, they didn't have to recreate every single game. They could have just taken, like, the broad strokes of it. And it's so stupid that they just focused on the novels, because, like, look, for people who say that they went to the books, they really cherry-picked a lot of crap from there. Like, for instance, there's no Silver Team, right? Master Chief is supposed to lead Blue Team, okay? And his best friend in there is that one Spartan, Kelly. Well, in the TV show, instead it's Silver Team, and I think the person taking Kelly's place is that one blonde chick, Kai, who I feel like they're setting up this romance subplot, because she's the one who gets the most screen time out of the Spartans, aside from Master Chief, of course. But out of the other Spartans, she's the one who gets the most screen time. So, if they are setting up a romantic subplot between her and Master Chief, whatever. I wouldn't put it past them at this point. I haven't even talked about the secondary character, Kwan Ha, I think her name is. Basically, from the moment she appeared on screen, she's just an annoying, bratty teenager. And I don't know if this was the writers, this is the writer's idea of teenagers. And I will admit, there were a lot of teenagers, like back when I was in school, that were really, like, what's the word? Like, uppity, bratty. They think they know everything. They talk back to authority. But, like, this chick dials it up to 11. To the point where, like, in the first episode, after she basically gets her father and, like, her entire outpost of people killed on her planet, and the UNSC, like, the Spartans, including Master Chief, save her, even though they didn't want to at first, the UNSC, like, asks her to, like, basically, like, retell her story to the people. And instead, she mouths off to the UNSC, fully admits that instead she's just going to straight up lie and say that the UNSC killed all of her people and her father. And at that point, like, I was just thinking, okay, she's gotta go. So the UNSC actually does give her what's called an Article 72, which is a kill order on that show. And Master Chief doesn't follow through with it. And I'm pretty sure anybody else who's watched the show, they would have fully agreed if he just killed her right then and there. Like he should have. Because in episodes 2, 3, and 4, like, all she's good for is getting in trouble or getting people hurt and or killed. Which, thankfully, there's another character named Soren who, he's played by the same actor who played Shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, he straight up calls her out on that, like, multiple times in the previous couple episodes. Like, in episode 3, when Quan is mouthing off to him, he straight up tells her that, like, that the only reason why he hasn't killed her himself is because he made a promise to Master Chief that would keep her safe, and so far he's gonna honor that promise. And then in episode 4, they visit, like, this vigil or whatever for Quan's father, where she lashes out and calls the people there traitors for, like, not taking up, like, his little revolution. And she ends up bringing the wrath of, like, the new leader of Madrigal, Venture, on them. And, like, Soren, like, full-on calls her out, that, like, she's the one who caused that. So, ironically, like, Soren, to me, is the most likable character right now in that show. And even then, going back to what I said about cherry-picking, apparently Soren's not an actual character from the novels or anything, or at the very least he is, but he has a different name. Now, it's been a while since I've read the books, but according to a friend of mine who has read it and knows a lot more about the Halo lore than me, like, Soren isn't his name. And I haven't even talked about the Covenant yet either, so the Covenant, their CGI looks fine in some places, a bit dodgy in others, like, and that's just the CGI across the board. Like, when it looks good, it looks great. When it looks bad, it just looks like shit. Especially, even during that opening fight scene between the Spartans and the Covenant, like, the CGI for the Covenant looked just off. And there was even a moment where I believe it's Kai or whoever, the Spartan, the blonde chick, she picks up an energy pistol, kills a Covenant with it, and then when she throws it onto the ground, like, you can see for a good 3 seconds that that's not the finished product, it's just the prop gun, and they left that into the final product. So, I don't know who's making the effects for this show, but they either need to get their shit together or they should just get fired. Because that's just unacceptable for a pilot episode of a TV show that I'm assuming they were supposed to... I'm assuming they wanted it to be, like, their answer to The Mandalorian. Because there are moments where it looks like it's trying to do, like, film industry grade effects. Like, I don't know what the budget is for each episode, but it looks like they're trying to do a film budget per episode. At least for the Spartan armor. The Covenant themselves. So again, it's been a while since I've read the novels, and it's also been a while since I've played the games. But I have seen cutscenes of the Prophets, and the Prophets in the show, as good as their CGI is, they do not look like the Prophets in the games. Like, the ones in the show look like Hunchback... sorry. The ones in the show look like Hunchback Kaminoans from Star Wars Episode 2. And then there's the fact that they have that one short-haired blonde girl, McKee, where, first of all, if my memory is correct, McKee was a female elite in the Covenant, and the fact that they used a human for that is, I do know this for a fact. The fact that they have a human Covenant member is just, first of all, that's a betrayal of the Halo lore in general, because the Covenant are all about, like, killing humans. Why would they keep a human in their ranks and to such a high level of command that she does in the show? Now I do remember there was a flashback where they did take her because turns out both she and Master Chief, they get like special reactions when they touch this Forerunner technology that was shown in the very first episode. But to put her in like a very high position in the Covenant just feels off. And then there's the fact that in episode 3, she actually storms this one UNSC ship, and she uses like these like worm aliens called the Letgolo, which initially I thought they were pretty cool because that whole sequence where they're just writhing around the ship and ensnaring the UNSC Marines, that kind of gave off like a horror vibe, especially with the movie The Thing, or at least that's what I thought it was, until I read up on those aliens, and it turns out that they're not that powerful in the games or the novels. Because in reality, they come together to form this, like, hunter armor, which was actually teased, like, earlier in the episode. So, it didn't really make any sense on why it didn't use the armor for storming the ship. Or, at the very least, at first fight in the armor, and then, like, when the armor got damaged, like, have all the worms, like, come out of the armor, and then ensnare all the Marines, but whatever. So, I don't know, I guess to summarize this whole thing, like, there's a few good moments in here, like, that opening sequence with the Spartans fighting the Covenant is probably the best moment out of the whole show so far, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, because it does show that it can be a good show, but it's also bad because that's the best part of the entire show, and it's been only the first episode. Like, the only other good part about it right now is, like, John's flashbacks as a child, and the intro sequence, mostly for that, mostly for the music in there. Oh, speaking of, turns out the composer came out and said that, like, he didn't know there was a significance to John always keeping his helmet on. Which, again, I wouldn't have a problem with it if he didn't do it so freaking often. Like, again, it's like if Judge Dredd always had his helmet off, which again is another jab at the Sylvester Stallone movie. And right, that's all I got. I wasn't expecting this rant to be as long as it did. Like, I'm really just reusing the same clips that I took from Halo Infinite at this point. Like, yeah, the TV show isn't gonna respect the lore enough, so I'm not gonna respect it enough to do new footage while I'm talking. Which again is another shame, because you got Steven Spielberg as an executive producer of this show, and I'm sorry to Spielberg, but this is the biggest dud I've seen him make in a long time. And that's saying something, considering that I actually didn't have a problem with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull movie. Like, it's without a doubt the worst Indiana Jones film, but I actually got some enjoyment out of watching that film. So, I guess to cap it all off, like, I'm basically gonna leave this the same way I left the Snake Eyes movie. If you're not a fan of the Halo TV show, and like you don't know the lore, like if you don't know, like if you don't know it, like even less than I do, then yeah, you'll probably find some enjoyment with the show. Oh, hey, one more thing, actually, hang on a second, put a pin in that. The last thing that I did forget to mention, like speaking of that blonde Spartan Kai, so going on with this whole going on with the whole romantic subplot that I think they're gearing her up for. There is also this other plot point where both she and Master Chief removed their those pellets that make them that take away their emotions, and I don't even remember if they had those pellets in the games or the novels, but whatever. She pulled out her pellet in the latest episode, and the first thing she does is she dyes her hair with the UNSC's equivalent to like the gun cleaning CLP that like people use in real life to clean their weapons. Why? I don't care about like, I don't care too much about dyeing the hair, but like, why use CLP for that? I don't know too much about like gun cleaning oil. Like I've used it a couple times myself, but I'm going out on a limb and guessing that there's some chemicals in there that like you wouldn't want that in your hair. But whatever. The minute she takes out that pellet, like she just becomes cringy, just spouting off about how like the doctors at the UNSC don't actually care about them, blah blah blah. And I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a parallel with like actual military that like that they're just grunts. They're cannon fodder. Nobody cares about them. They're just there to kill the enemy. And fine, if they want to do that message, then they're doing that message better with Master Chief himself, because they don't. With him, they're not totally beating you over the head with it. But like, just take any other military film, like I guess Full Metal Jacket or Platoon or like 13 Hours, and they do that whole message of like the governments and the people in politics don't actually care about the people actually serving. They're doing that message better, and then like they're even, like I said, they're even doing it better with Master Chief in the show. But then on the other side, they got the blonde Spartan Kai, who's just taking a sledgehammer to that whole thing, and the whole thing just becomes so in your face. Like they made the character unlikable within the first episode. Like they, every Spartan except for John, like they had no personality. And then the first one that they actually give a personality to, it's annoying. I don't know. Last thing, I guess, I don't really understand why they changed Cortana's design, but at this point it doesn't really faze me that much. At least they kept the voice actress from the video games. But that's really it for me. Last thing, again with Steven Spielberg. I really don't get how he could screw up this bad on this show. Like, I thought he learned his lesson with, like, jumping the shark with Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which, again, I still liked. I won't mind watching it again. But I don't understand how he could screw up so badly on this. So, again, I guess my parting words are I'm gonna leave this on the same note that I left my Snake Eyes review last year. If you know less about the lore than even I do, and you're not a fan of the games or the novels, then yeah, you'll probably like this show. But if you're a huge fan of the games and you're a huge fan of the novels, then you are gonna downright hate this, so definitely skip it. But that's it for me. I'm tired of ranting about shows and movies that I don't like. I really am sick of it. So that's it. I'm not sure if I'm going to make a review of this once the show is over. I just wanted to get this out. So good night.